The Supreme Court has just unleashed the ultimate blow on Trump's entire business empire, effectively handing down the corporate equivalent of a death sentence for the Trump Organization. That's right. The highest court in the land has determined that Trump's company is so fundamentally corrupt that it must be entirely dismantled. Warren Buffett, who has largely stayed quiet about Trump for years, broke his silence with a stunning statement that's sending shockwaves through Wall Street. It's hard to wrap your head around just how extreme this action is. This isn't about paying fines or facing minor restrictions. This is the total dismantling of a multi-billion-dollar empire that has stood for decades. Trump isn't just losing a few properties or paying penalties. This is the systematic destruction of everything he built, everything his father built, the complete eradication of the Trump Organization. And what Buffett said about this will likely shift how corporate America views Trump going forward. Here's what's been happening in this absolutely wild story. For years, Donald Trump has been embroiled in legal battles over his business practices. Since the New York fraud case began in 2022, he's insisted it was all a politically motivated witch hunt. His lawyers argued the charges were baseless, claiming valuations are subjective and no banks were harmed. Trump himself kept posting on Truth Social, insisting his company was the most honest and successful in America. From civil fraud trials to criminal investigations, he positioned himself as a victim of lawfare. He claimed Democrats were trying to destroy him politically. And while his base lapped it up, even some moderate Republicans began to question whether the prosecutions were truly about justice. Now, however, the situation has reached an unprecedented level. The Supreme Court, led by the conservative majority Trump helped install, has ruled that the Trump Organization engaged in such systematic and egregious fraud that the only solution is complete dissolution. Chief Justice Roberts authored the opinion using language that left little room for doubt. It was scathing. This crisis stems from multiple court findings showing that Trump's company wasn't merely bending the rules. The courts described it as a criminal enterprise disguised as a legitimate business. Valuations were inflated by thousands of %. Financial statements shifted depending on the audience. Loan applications contained fabricated numbers, and the fallout touches everything. Every Trump-branded property, golf course, hotel, and licensing deal. Trump has long been celebrated as a master deal-maker, a brilliant businessman. Yet, in an ironic twist, the Supreme Court justices he helped appoint have delivered the final blow to his corporate empire. Complete liquidation is mandated within 180 days. Let's be clear, this isn't a minor accounting issue or typical business controversy. This is history. A former president's company deemed too corrupt to exist. Reports indicate that Trump was absolutely furious upon learning the Supreme Court's decision. He called Roberts' opinion treasonous and accused the Chief Justice of betraying America and the Constitution. In other words, Trump publicly condemned Roberts for refusing to shield him from the consequences of his own actions. And he made sure the world knew it, posting his grievances on Truth Social and expecting the conservative justices he appointed to protect him from accountability. This announcement sent shockwaves through the Republican Party, sparking all sorts of questions. If Trump, the party's de facto leader, could have his entire business empire dismantled by the Supreme Court, what did that mean for everyone else who had aligned themselves with him? This isn't the first time Trump has turned on those who were supposed to be his allies. His loyalty extends almost exclusively to himself. The moment someone stops being useful or crosses him, he doesn't hesitate to turn on them. The pattern is unmistakable. Take Jeff Sessions, for example. Sessions was the first senator to endorse Trump and stood by him when no one else would. Yet, after recusing himself from the Russia investigation, Trump publicly destroyed him for simply following the law. Then there's Bill Barr, the attorney general Trump handpicked to protect him through Mueller impeachment and more. But when Barr refused to support the stolen election claims, Trump immediately labeled him weak and cowardly. Even Mike Pence, one of the most loyal vice presidents in recent memory, wasn't spared. He defended Trump tirelessly for 4 years. But when he refused to overturn the 2020 election on January 6, Trump sent a mob chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," after him. Kevin McCarthy faced a similar fate. After initially criticizing Trump over January 6, McCarthy went to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. But even that wasn't enough. Trump undermined him and helped orchestrate his removal as Speaker. This is a pattern we've seen over and over. Unwavering loyalty doesn't guarantee protection. Step out of line or become less useful, and you're out. So, what triggered Trump's fury with the Supreme Court? It came down to one simple thing: following the law instead of shielding him. The case reached the Supreme Court after New York's highest court upheld the order to dissolve the Trump Organization. Trump's lawyers wanted the justices to intervene and find a constitutional loophole to save the company, but the Supreme Court's role is to determine whether the lower courts correctly applied the law. Trump's team argued dissolution was excessive, extreme, and unconstitutional, essentially betting that the conservative majority he helped install would bail him out. At first, there might have been reason for optimism. This Supreme Court had given him some victories before, rulings in his favor on presidential immunity, slow-walking cases that could harm him politically. But as the justices reviewed the fraud trial evidence, major red flags emerged. Financial statements claimed his penthouse measured 30,000 square ft when it was 11,000. Property values were inflated tenfold. Different financial statements were created for loans, insurance, and taxes. Even with his expected protection, the evidence was overwhelming. The fraud was blatant, systematic, and clearly intentional. Not even the most conservative justices could overlook it. That's when Chief Justice Roberts began to take the situation seriously. Roberts is deeply invested in the court's legitimacy and the public's respect for the rule of law. He doesn't want the Supreme Court perceived as a partisan tool protecting political allies. That is not the legacy he seeks. Then Trump's team made a critical misstep. Instead of sticking to legal arguments, they claimed Trump deserved special treatment as a former president and current candidate, even suggesting that ruling against him would impact the 2024 election. When Roberts learned of this, he was furious. In his view, using the Supreme Court as a political shield is an affront to judicial independence. Arguing that the court should consider electoral consequences corrupts the very idea of justice. Any lawyer suggesting the judiciary should protect the guilty for political reasons is undermining the entire system. This put Trump in a really tight spot. On one hand, his business empire is central to his image as a successful businessman. The Trump Organization isn't just about money, it's his identity, his brand, his claim to fame. On the other hand, multiple courts have now found his company guilty of massive fraud. That means he has to confront the legal consequences, accept the dissolution order, and watch his empire collapse. The problem is, doing any of that requires some level of accountability. Trump is caught between two unappealing options. He can keep attacking the courts and claiming it's all political persecution, which means fighting a battle he's already lost, and appearing increasingly unhinged as even conservative justices rule against him. Or he can accept the ruling and try to move on, which would be an admission that his company was fraudulent, destroying the image of himself as a brilliant businessman. This is classic Trump chaos. He demands absolute loyalty from judges, expects protection regardless of the law, and then viciously attacks them when they actually uphold it. Undermining the judicial system whenever it suits him has long been his style. The ripple effects are causing serious stress within the Republican Party. If the Supreme Court with its conservative supermajority has turned on Trump and is willing to dismantle his business empire, what does that mean for the party's future? Moderate Republicans trying to balance support for Trump with maintaining credibility are now worried about being tied to a leader whose company has been officially declared criminal. Meanwhile, diehard Trump loyalists see this as proof the system is rigged, that even Trump's own appointees have betrayed him, and they're ready to attack any institution that doesn't protect him. The tension escalated further when Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, broke his long-standing silence on Trump. Buffett has generally avoided politics, focusing on investing, but his statement sent shockwaves through the financial world. He said, when a company's fraud is so extensive that the Supreme Court orders corporate dissolution, that's not persecution. That's justice. I've been investing for 70 years, and I've never seen fraud on this scale. The Trump Organization wasn't a business, it was a criminal enterprise. When someone as respected as Buffett, who built a reputation on honest dealing and value investing, calls your company a criminal enterprise, you know the situation is dire. The New York Attorney General, Letitia James, quickly moved to ensure the dissolution is carried out properly. On November 15th, she filed additional motions demanding expedited liquidation of all Trump properties, pointing out that every day the company continues to operate is another day of potential fraud. The courts recognize the urgency. Every day the Trump Organization operates poses a risk. More victims, more fraud, more market damage. And the court filings were devastating. This wasn't just a few minor misstatements. The pattern of fraud went back decades. Inflated loan applications, insurance claims based on false values, tax filings that contradicted bank statements. In legal terms, this means the company is so fundamentally corrupt, it cannot be salvaged. The only solution is complete shutdown, with the Supreme Court specifically naming the Trump Organization and ordering its full dissolution. The message is clear. No one is above the law, not even a former president. This is historic. Experts note that we haven't seen a corporate death penalty of this magnitude since Standard Oil was broken up over a century ago. Alan Dershowitz, who famously defended Trump during his first impeachment, went on Fox News with a statement that really demands attention. He said the evidence of fraud was so overwhelming that no honest court could have ruled otherwise. I've practiced law for 50 years, and I've never seen financial statements this deliberately false. He said, pause for a second. That's Trump's own former lawyer admitting the fraud was undeniable. And remember, this is someone who once risked his reputation to defend Trump in a politically charged trial. Another conservative legal expert, often sympathetic to Trump, echoed the same point. The Supreme Court had no choice. When fraud is this systematic, deliberate, and extensive, the only remedy that truly protects the public is dissolution. When respected legal voices from across the spectrum start using terms like criminal enterprise and systematic fraud, it's time to take notice. So, what does this corporate dissolution actually mean? It's more than a dramatic headline. It has serious implications for our justice system. First, there's the immediate political fallout. Trump is still the front-runner for the GOP nomination, but this ruling is hitting him hard. His approval ratings among independents are dropping, and Republican representatives are nervous about being tied to someone whose business has been officially declared a criminal enterprise. The Supreme Court declaring his company too corrupt to exist is not exactly a flattering spotlight for him. Most Americans still hold the court in high regard, seeing it as a cornerstone of justice, even if they don't always agree with its decisions. Democrats, meanwhile, are poised to capitalize on this. They'll frame Trump not just as a convicted felon, but as someone who ran a criminal enterprise for decades, backed by the Supreme Court's own words. Expect quotes from the dissolution order to appear in campaign ads, speeches, and debates. This is a powerful weapon in their messaging. Then there's the impact on the Supreme Court itself. Chief Justice Roberts has worked hard to keep the court above politics, maintaining its image as neutral and impartial, but ordering Trump's corporate death penalty has thrust the court into the center of a massive political storm. Trump and his supporters are ready to attack the court, question its legitimacy, and claim bias. Yet, Roberts likely felt he had no choice. Ignoring the evidence to protect Trump would have done far more damage to the court's credibility than doing the right thing. At its core, this case is about whether we truly have equal justice under the law. Can a former president operate a fraudulent business for decades and face no real consequences simply because of his position? If Trump had escaped accountability, it could have fundamentally reshaped how white-collar crime is viewed in America. Justice is supposed to be blind, treating rich and poor, powerful and powerless alike. That's why Lady Justice wears a blindfold. She's meant to see only whether the law was broken. Trump, of course, has never been comfortable with those limitations. He craves total control. Had he avoided consequences for massive fraud, it would have sent a dangerous signal that wealthy elites can act with impunity. It could embolden other business leaders to commit similar fraud, knowing the system will protect them. The implications go far beyond Trump and his company. This ruling is shaping corporate accountability for years to come. Every time Trump sidestepped consequences, received special treatment, or escaped justice, it chipped away at the system of laws. Behavior once deemed unacceptable started to feel normal. Imagine if Trump had gotten away with running a fraudulent empire for decades. What would stop the next billionaire from doing the same? If lying on financial statements becomes standard practice, what prevents every company from cooking its books? These actions don't just vanish when Trump steps away, they become part of our new reality. And that's a serious problem. Capitalism depends on honest financial statements, accurate valuations, and trustworthy business practices. When those foundations break down, the entire system starts to wobble. Looking ahead to the 2024 election, the effects are already becoming clear. We're still a year out, but the narrative being shaped now is bound to matter. If Trump is widely seen as a corrupt businessman whose empire was too fraudulent to exist, that's a major red flag for Republicans. Voters don't usually reward criminality or deception. They want leaders who are honest and have integrity. Right now, Trump isn't offering either. Democrats are likely to run with this narrative, emphasizing the need to restore honor to the White House after years of fraud and corruption. They can position themselves as the party of ethical leadership. No more criminal enterprises disguised as legitimate businesses. No more presidents who built wealth on lies. Just accountable, honest governance. That message could resonate not only with their base, but also with moderate Republicans who care about law and order. Here's the bottom line. The Supreme Court just ordered the complete dissolution of Trump's business empire as punishment for systematic fraud. This isn't about a few buildings or paying fines. It's about whether America truly has one system of justice for everyone. If Trump can operate a criminal enterprise for decades and face no consequences, then the rule of law is meaningless. That sets a dangerous precedent where the wealthy and powerful can act with impunity. This case is about much more than Trump's business. It's about whether justice in this country is genuinely blind, or if it bends to the whims of the rich and powerful. Keep watching closely. Things are heating up fast. Trump's lawyers are preparing emergency appeals. His political team is strategizing spin. Republicans are scrambling to decide how or if they can still support him. The next few weeks will be critical. The stakes are higher than ever. The evidence is overwhelming, and the outcome remains completely unpredictable.